Our next speaker is a Hollywood legend who needs very little introduction. In addition to her, Golden Globe and Academy Award-winning career, and the fact that she's a Hollywood icon and a personal inspiration of mine, she is dedicated to reducing children's stress and anxiety. Her foundation developed a program called Mind Up to help students and educators acquire skills and mindfulness practices to improve learning and academic performance and build personal resilience. These tools have reached more than 6 million children. Not to mention, she has brought joy to all of us, of course. Please welcome Goldie Hawn.
Good morning. That's not going to work. This is not going to work. This is my first faux pas. I'm going over here, but I will walk over here to take another sip if I need to. So I wanted to share a little bit of something with you because, we're obviously talking about mental health, mental stability. And when I first started in the industry, I was a dancer. And I had a real plan for my life. And it was to basically be a dancer, be on TV, but then knowing that I was never going to be anything more than that, or even wanted to, really, I was going to go home to Maryland, open a dancing school, get married, and be happy. And that was my plan. And at 11 years old, people used to say to me when I was dancing in the living room or whatever, they'd say, "What do you want to be when you grow up, Goldie?" And I said, "Happy." And I remember them looking at me like I was crazy, and I thought, why did they look at me like that? Well, they said, "No, we asked you what you want to be when you grow up. Do you want to be a dancer? Do you want to be a star? Do you want to be..." And I remember saying, "No, I want to be happy." And they didn't ask me what I wanted to do. That was different. What I want to do is I want to dance, and I want to get married, and I want to live a normal life. When I went to New York and I danced, and then I went to LA and I danced, and I only went there to dance, and then I got a show. And the show was the Andy Griffith special. And I did the Andy Griffith special, and I was so happy. I was on a TV show. I called my family. I said, "I got it." And the choreographer said that he was going to use me in all his shows that he does, because Nick Castle was his name, and I was thrilled. And then I'm doing the show, and I'm rehearsing the show, and an agent comes up to me and says, "I want to ask you a question. Do you have an agent?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I'd like to talk to you. I'm from William Morris." And I went, "Oh, yeah." Now, being alone in New York City at the age of 19, 20, 21, et cetera, it's sort of a wonder I trusted any men. In the meantime, I didn't trust him either. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much." I put his card here, and I went off and finished my rehearsal. I got a call, and it said after the show, "Mr. Simon would like to see you. Are you coming in today?" And I thought, I didn't think he was telling the truth. Ran in, went to William Morris in my car that had a hole in the bottom of the floor. And every time I made a right-hand turn, the left-hand door flew open. But anyway, so I go in and I get this thing, and they all meet me, all these agents. They were all so small, and they looked like penguins. And they all drove. It was just really interesting because they were powerful. And I sat there, and they said, "Well, she's too young for this, she's too this, and what?" He says, "No, I just have a feeling." They said, "Okay," so they signed me. And the next thing I know, I'm going to an audition for Persky and Denoff and whatever for all these Mary Tyler Moore people. And there's a series, and I'm not right for that series. And I knew I wasn't right for this series, but I went up for it so they could meet me, according to my agent. And I come back, and I get a phone call, and it says, "You got the job." And I said, "I got what job?" "You got the job." I said, "But I'm too young for that part." And they said, "Oh, no, they wrote in a part for you." My life changed in a millisecond. I was not happy. I was not going to be dancing anymore. I was going to do a TV show. I wasn't going right home. I wasn't going to do the things that I thought I was going to do. And something extraordinary happened. I became depressed. I suddenly, that hip-hugging, belly button showing, dancer, happy person wasn't that happy anymore. And I lost my smile. And I really was worried because I was having panic attacks. My life was upside down. But what was interesting is that my mind also, my brain was also not functioning appropriately. I wasn't dealing with this crisis of, thwarted dreams. I really was someone, as a young girl, who didn't want to go in public. I would get sick to my stomach when I did, and I'd have to go to the bathroom and throw up because I felt sick. And I would stay home, and I would paint, and I would sit in my round blue chair while I was doing this show, which was really hard for me because I didn't feel funny. So I saw a doctor. Right away, I saw a psychologist because I wanted to know how to get myself out of this state of mind. This thing that happened to my brain that just sort of clicked into a whole different thing. And I didn't know why. And so I went to a doctor, and I went to this doctor like the university of me. I wanted to study more about what my issues were. I learned more about my parental relationships. I learned a lot about myself. And I also did a lot of interesting not regression therapy, but things that came to mind when I was lying on the couch and I was holding my legs up over my head and playing with my feet. And it reminded me of when I was a baby, and it took me into the crib. And it reminded me of an amazing memory of when my mother used to powder me and snap me up in my onesie when I was in the crib. Made me feel good, made me feel warm, made me know more closer to who I was. I spent 9 years in therapy, not because I necessarily needed it, but because I was fascinated with the human mind, with the unbridled, interesting discovery of the human condition and how our responses are, and what are the things that make us trigger, and how do we control our emotional system. And then in 1972, in the middle of this, I meditated. I thought, you know what? I'm going to learn to meditate. And I went to Westwood right here. I was initiated right over here on Glendon or whatever in 1972. And I will never forget that experience. I was initiated to TM. I was given a mantra. I was led into a room with a beautiful flower and a wonderful incense with my mantra that I said quietly to me. And I remember the window was open and it was blowing, the curtains were blowing, and it was a summer day. And I sat there and I closed my eyes and I started repeating this mantra, and something happened. I started to giggle. And I can only say that it was like meeting myself for the first time. My happy self, the self that I used to know, but I was there and it was stimulating me and it made me happy. And I thought, what is this sense? I can hear my own heartbeat. I literally can feel myself again. And it was a reignition, a reigniting, I guess, of my spirit. I can't explain to you the peace, the wholeness, and a very internal experience that I had returned back to myself. And over the years, one of the things I learned about the brain and the mind and our emotions is to allow people to be who they are. When people say, Goldie, I think you're great, oh, that's wonderful. When people say, I don't think she did very good, I think that's fine. Because everybody has a right to their opinion, but it isn't necessarily the truth. They don't know you really. So it gives you great freedom to be able to say, thank you, or I understand, without getting involved in the drama of the ego. I started learning about the brain because again, along with me making movies and trying to make people laugh, I also am quite a deep thinker, right? So I thought, inside of all this, I'm really interested in navigating and understanding our neurobiology. Not that I would become a neuroscientist, but probably the neuroscientists are the most interesting people in the world to me. And this happened, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago. So in attending conferences and attending mindfulness conferences and connecting to neurobiology and learning through Richie Davidson and all the people who I now know, putting together meditation and neurobiology. And it's in this amazing petri dish. Even though it was on the cover of Time magazine, it seems to fluff up and go away. But what we've learned over time, there's nothing more important than learning how to manage your own emotional construct. There's nothing more important than learning how your brain works. You don't have to learn the symphony of the brain, but we can understand how we can strengthen the brain, how we can understand how to become kinder, more aware, more empathetic, more active, more productive, more positive, by knowing that just time out and time in will really be able to amplify your potential. I realized that all this information was staying in a petri dish. And after 9/11, I said, okay, Goldie, I'm in my 50s. Am I going to wait for the phone to ring for another movie? Is this what I want to do in the rest of my life? I never thought I'd ever be doing one thing in my life. Progression is everything. And I went to Vancouver to be with my son because he was playing hockey and we set up housekeeping there. And I sat there and I looked at the rain in my meditation room and it was a beautiful glass ceiling. And I thought, 9/11 had just happened. And our world is drastically changing. Like light speed. And I knew our children were going to suffer on some level, uncertainty, fear, all the things that even I experienced during the Cold War. Mommy, am I going to die? Am I going to die before I kiss a guy? Will I ever have children? That was what the Cold War did to me. Well, we wonder, what's the Cold War doing to our children? What's happening when they see these buildings blowing up one after the other? With a lack of consciousness, I would honestly be brave enough to say, there isn't enough responsibility for people in our media. People watch the news, it imprints on our brain, it creates our mood. It's up to us to turn it off, but it's addictive. But I decided to create this program. I did not write it, I dreamed it. And that was to bring all the things that we know to the classroom. We brought in neuroscientists to write neuroscience from K to 8th. Early education is my focus. So from K to 8, starting in kindergarten, they learn about their brain. They love their brain. One little boy in Basalt in one of our big schools there was in trouble. He's 7. And the teacher said to him, why did you do that? He said, because my amygdala was overactive and my prefrontal cortex wasn't thinking. It was so great. It's so great. So that's what they're learning. They're learning how to regulate themselves by understanding their brain, contextualizing it. They know that when they do their brain break, which is what we've coined as something similar to meditation, it's a 3-minute break 3 times a day, if needed before tests, and the children will ask for it. But they know what the correlate is. The neurological correlate to breathing, focusing, quieting the mind is quieting down the guard dog, the amygdala, the thing that can mitigate learning, fear, anxiety, all these things that our children are feeling today and don't know why. Arguments between parents, breakups, death, loss of finances. These children feel everything. But this allows them to learn. So they know that they have to breathe and focus and quiet down, and that quiets down the guard dog. And then the wise old owl in the prefrontal cortex can finally light up and listen. And then, of course, the hippocampus loves that because the hippocampus remembers. I started this 15 years ago. We're now probably at around plus 6 million plus children. I dreamed that we would have a global mind up. I thought it was a lofty dream because I believe that we need to build new leadership in this country and the countries of the world, to give them the tools to manage themselves, to become more able to critically make decisions on an ensemble, to be able to work together, to reduce the kind of polarity. And I was using that word 15 years ago. And today is a pure example how this has not been healed. But we can do it through our children. Every child in every classroom in the world should know about their brain. Every child in the classroom should know what acts of kindness is. Every child should learn to quiet their mind, if not once, 3 times a day. To know the affects, the positive affects, to create happier children, happier humans. So basically, when we talk about capital, I think that we're building human capital. I don't think there's anything more important because we create the world. The world does not create us. It does not arise unto itself. The Capitol in the United States of Washington, D.C. did not arise unto itself. It was created by men and maybe a few women. But this is what I'm saying. We create our reality. So when we have our children in our schools, I thought this is going to be wonderful. But I prayed. I really did. I asked. I had the intention to bring it to the world. And now we're in 11 countries. I think intention can break miracles. And each country came to us. When I say each country, we're in Jordan now. We're in Hong Kong now. We've just gone to China to do our big training up there. We're in the UK. We're in Ireland. We're in Portugal. We're in Serbia. We're in Finland. We're in Canada, where it all started. We're in Uganda. We have 2 schools in Uganda. It's the most beautiful thing to be able to look at what we can do by understanding these very simple things. So all in all, I would say, the most important thing as we're dealing here with mental health and mental stability, we can focus in on not only our own anger, our own inability to manage our relationships, but understand why. It's about you. It's not about them. Only we can make a difference. That's an inside, intrinsic experience of who we are and what we want. So when we give children the power of self, not false admiration, not, oh, good job, no, oh, this. No, they earn that. But that sense of intrinsic power over themselves is what we can all achieve. And I believe, aside from our conditions that do come up emotionally, mentally, inside of our neurology, I'm quite sure that I had a tic when this happened to me. But I used a different method. There were no medications then. And I'm quite sure if I'd gone to someone, they would have said, perhaps you need medication. But I went the other route. So I think this is a very important discussion today about how we affect our emotional and physical health. So I'll leave you with one of the causes for happiness is a stable mind and a wish to be happy.